Mr. Speaker.
Honorable, please, let's listen to the Deputy Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Minister was, Mr. Speaker, Order 1952. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I need guidance and I read. The budget statement and economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the Minister responsible for finance on behalf of or on the authority of the President, and in a form the House may determine. Mr. Speaker, I'm emphasizing on the last part, in a form the House may determine. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, this new standing orders on this 9th Parliament, we haven't determined any form the budget statement will be presented as at now. Mr. Speaker, I have gone to read Order 6, and I have checked on our schedule from Schedule 1 to Schedule 10, and that of Order 6, and I have not been able to understand. And as we stand, Mr. Speaker, as at now, the House has not determined the form the budget is going to be presented. So, Mr. Speaker, the House has to determine the form before he can present any statement. Mr. Speaker, that is my plea, that the House must determine, my application is that the House must determine the form of the budget statement before he reads the statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Public Financial Management Act and its various amendments spell out clearly the budgeting process, the requirements of a budget, what must be contained in it, and etc. And that was a legislation enacted by the same Parliament. And this Parliament acts according to the prescriptions of that legislation. So if there are provisions in the standing orders that recommend that we have a form in which the budget should be presented, the provisions of the Public Financial Management Act, of course, is the parent legislation dealing with financial management and the presentation of budgets. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's an issue here. Let's proceed and take the budget statement from the Minister of Finance.
Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have listened to the application by the Member of Parliament for Toulon. I have also listened to the Leader of the House responding to the said application. The Leader of the House makes a general submission. The application was anchored on the rules of this House. A mandatory provision in Order 195, there's no made there. It reads, for the avoidance of doubt and at the risk of being repetitive, this is what it says. The budget statement in economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the minister responsible for finance on behalf of and on the authority of the president, and in the form the House may determine. Yes, wait, look at them. Mr. Speaker, wait, yes. So, yes, wait. Mr. Speaker, let you take it easy. They should take it easy. They should take it easy. This is law. Take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy. So, Mr. Speaker, what is the reverse logic? Please, for the benefit of our young ones, for the benefits of the young ones, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this house is a house of procedure. This house is equally guided by its own rules and precedents. Wait a moment. For those who are in a hurry to shout in his agreement, if the law says may determine, is it also the case that in reverse logic, the House may decide not to determine any form? What? No, wait. The law is that a budget statement must be presented. But we are saying again that as a House, we may have to determine which form. So, Mr. Speaker, the invitation by the minority, the deputy minority whip, is well founded. He is inviting us as a House to determine, are we going to allow him to make a statement, or we are going to allow him to move a motion? Is it going to be in a form of a motion or in a form of a statement? This is a well-anchored application. Don't use your number to shout to intimidate him. He has made a solid argument. This House has not determined the form in which this item has to be taken. The deputy minority whip is inviting us to set the ground rules. The majority leader got up and referred to PFM Act to say what? He didn't quote the specific provision. The man has made an application under our own rules. You didn't attack him on the rules. You didn't know. You didn't say anything against his application on the rules. Mr. Speaker, as the minister is here, in which form are we going to listen to him? Is he going to make a statement? Or he is going to move a motion? Mr. Speaker, this house is being invited to determine this matter. You see, the Supreme Court has had an occasion to give a contextual interpretation where may is placed to mean shall. Yes, it is there. No, come on, Mr. Speaker, even that argument aside, put that argument aside. There's no need for any interpretation of whether may should be shall. The point is that the law provides that we should determine the form. The law says we should determine the form. In this house, there are ways to come here. You come to make a statement. You come to move a motion. What is the minister coming to do? It's for this house to determine. Is he going to move a motion in accordance with Article 179? Or he's coming to make a statement? And when he makes the statement, what happens? Is it going to be left with a chairman of a finance committee to now move that this house should debate the statement? Mr. Speaker, this is a solid application and he should be applauded for what he's done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I will want to rule on this matter. I've heard enough. I think in terms of procedure, the right thing has been done. The order you quoted clearly states the statement of the estimates of revenue and expenditure of the government. It says what? The statement. And so what they are bringing to us is a statement. And when statements are admitted, they are presented as statements. Now, when you go to 1952, which you refer to, it says the budget statement and economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the minister responsible for finance on behalf of or on the authority of the president. That's first. Second, and in a form the House may determine. Honorable Minority Leader, you are not in a shouting battle. Please. This is the House. The only way the House can determine however you define form is when the statement is presented to you. The House cannot determine this matter outside the House. You can only determine it when you are truly sitting as a House. And this is the House. He's presenting the statement. If you decide that you want a form, you define form in any different manner as you are doing, then this is the time when it is presented, you take this opportunity to determine that form you want, different from the earlier forms that we've decided and been practicing. If this is what you want to do, please, the statement must first be presented to you. It has to be presented to the House. And if you may, you determine the form you want it to be presented. That can be part of the debate. But I'm not sure the definition you are putting on the word form. Form. Please go back to your lexicons. To determine the meaning of form. I think the writing is being done. The statement was admitted. It's been properly captured on the order paper as programmed by the business committee, and the minister is here to present the statement to the House. So the minister may do so. So honorable members, Honorable Minister, just a minute. Just a minute. Honorable members, at the commencement, yes.
Mr. Speaker, just to thank you for your guidance and the proper interpretation of 1952. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
As peaceful as we are, we should remain peaceful. You go, you vote, you come home. That's it. That's easy as that.
Nice one. Nice one. Final words. Whatever you need to get out of your chest, say it and end it with your handles again.
All right. I'll say it again. I say it everywhere that I love my fans so much. I love it because, like I said, they are the reason why I'm here right now. Oma motivated me to this point, where me are very, very confident in my music, in whatever I put out. That means me drop here. I'm not dropping rubbish because me was school, no, you know, there was something about me that made me feel like, hey, I mean, year now, because, you know, all those boys in school, most of the boys now in school, they were doing music. They felt so confident. And when I look at them, I could see, say, no, you are doing mistakes here and in your music and everything. But they were so confident in it, you know, and I wasn't.
So you question
So
yourself.
I used to question myself, because me himself, I didn't have boy in here. But he's so confident. What I said, like, he's so confident. So I feel like when I started dropping my freestyles and people were like, you're good. Oh yeah, wait, you're good. You're doing it the best way. It actually made me feel like, I was not wrong when I felt like doing it. And when we even look at where I am right now, and not to throw shades, where some of them are right now, I can see now that I'm doing the right thing. So I appreciate all my fans. Whoever is telling me, yo, continue doing this, I appreciate it. Big love.
The ones who are all selling out and everything, now you see the true colors. Yeah?
Exactly.
Beautiful. Exactly. Me patch my handles nibium, my handles nibium.
Olive the boy. OLIVE the boy. Yes.
Olive the boy. Olive Medawase. It wasn't even.
And the proper interpretation of 1952. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
99.5, your Facebook page.
Yeah, that's right.
All of the boy interview need Diego Newo.
Mahama. And pursuant to Article 179 of the Constitution and the other paper and the standing orders of the House, Order 1952, and today's order paper, item 7. Mr. Speaker, I present to you the budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, today marks a moment of great significance, and I have the singular honor to stand before this House to present, on behalf of His Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, following his extraordinary mandate, the maiden budget of his new administration. Mr. Speaker, I'm deeply grateful to His Excellency the President for entrusting me with this responsibility.
It will just urge you to pray for you to say thank you, because
Respectfully, Mr. Speaker, I also submit to this House the following statutory report as required by law. The 2024 annual report on the petroleum funds, in line with Section 48 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, as amended, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also submit the 2024 Energy Sector Levies Report in accordance with Section 6 of the Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the 2024 Annual Report on the collection and utilization of the African Import Union Levy, in line with Section 7 of the African Union Import Levy Act 2017, Act 952. Right Honorable Speaker, with this budget, I will also be seeking a review of the following act to support the policies of government aimed at stabilizing the economy and promoting inclusive growth. The first will be an amendment to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815. The second will be the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, Act 870. And the second will be an amendment to the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act 2018, Act 978. The Speaker, I will also be seeking amendment to the Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899. I will be seeking amendment to the Ghana Cocoa Board Act, Act 1984, the PNDC Law 81, as amended. The Speaker, that's not all. I will also be seeking amendment to the earmark Funds Capping and Realignment Act 2017, Act 947, the Ghana Procurement Authority Act 2003, Act.
Watch me.
Watch me. Watch me. Oshe from Agape, Kasua Makati Hill. So to home Santa Maria
663 as amended in Act 914. The Speaker, I'll be seeking amendment to the Ghana Education Trust Fund Act 2000.
Empress gift to the team Swamano. Watch me and pa. It's officially out. Me pacho mon checking all the streaming platforms, Namon downloading your mono. Olive the boy, mon downloading in your Empress Gifty, mon downloading your mono. Empress, your final words to your TF4 fans in now, more support you. You are atamfu bebre, or almost support him. Omudiachi, baby, I could be a moment in a message, mammy.
Made Obibia say, Obia was supporting Empress Brand and Yamin Obibia Cassiel
581. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I'll also be seeking amendment to the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, Act 982.
They are part of the ministry, and it's very necessary. So, because you're normal boami. Yami insure one casa so yami insure. When my sister yami enyamo kese. Thank you so much. Mama just say many me pe adie ba ko afiri ho. Daily memory verse ba ko a wode wo ho to so pa endi hwamoda. I would recommend it. Would do sorry them. Would do baby a can yankopon asem bi a woka say hey.
And incorporating into a comprehensive public financial management act. Mr. Speaker, I forgot to add that I will also be seeking amendment to the Revenue Administration Act 2016.
Okay, there are lots, but this is one a bomb pie. Exodus 14:14.
Then I will.
Exodus 14.
Debut.
Or say, I, the Lord, I will fight for you and you.
Act 915. So, Speaker,
how does that
we remain committed to the pursuit of our 24-hour economic policy of stimulating economic growth and job creation. Right on.
So I present my case.
Honorable Speaker, this policy will contribute to addressing Ghana's structural economic challenge by creating an integrated, efficient, and increasingly export-driven industrial economy that fulfills
watch me no one patch me also share not like it. Say the only energy to share my stories. Energy
the utilization of our national resources, capital, and labor power. Right Honorable Speaker, will be presenting the 24-hour economic policy to Parliament in due course. In this respect, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Act, the Ghana Investment Promotion Act, and other enabling legislations will be reviewed accordingly. Mr. Speaker, as part of the effort to stabilize our city through foreign exchange and gold reserve accumulation, I will also submit a bill to provide a legal framework for the establishment of the Ghana Gold Board for the consideration of this House. Mr. Speaker, this budget is indeed an abridged version of the 2025 budget statement and economic policy of government. I respectfully request the Hansa Department to capture the entire budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Mr. Speaker, standing here evokes a sense of nostalgia as I reflect on my journey in public service. From my early days as a young parliamentarian in this House in the year 2009, destiny has guided my path from a backbencher to economy through sound policy and structural reforms that will propel our country.
Inspiration ma etiefo ni ankofo bebree inti nyame emfa enyom a wotuo yi emfa unsi baby pa embo ho ban mayen. Amen. We are na Bible. Amen. Baby a obeko bia, baby a ode unan besi bia ebeye nhyira ma. Amen. De ode unsa besom ebeye nkunim die ama. Amen. De enyum bia obe drop verse wo so bia no. Ube hu improvement. Ube hu say we more than my first than me previous project. Ube start here any from adom ako adom. Jesus. And then also for about because
country forward. Mr. Speaker, there comes a time in a nation's history when fundamental challenges must be confronted. Difficult choices.
For Kaiser, dear ma Kaiser, Nafa Caesar, dear Soma Caesar. Edru mea ye gunsa ye bona nanumudi. Edru mea ye free Yesu Christo. Eye Yesu Christo. But I present and man and sasso. No fan abrabo manyankopo. Oh, because Christos na minim Yesu. Often abrabo ma Yesu ye. Entry boys ya kwa midimiti aji.
Choices. Difficult choices must be made, and a new course must be set must be made, and a new course must be set for the future.
Thank you for coming through. Thank you for coming through. Anytime be a program, anytime be a media publicity, anytime be a bibi wadren so our person will express on whom our
For Ghana, the defining moment is now. Mr. Speaker, President John Dramani Mahama, the defining moment is now. Mr. Speaker, President John Dramani Mahama made a commitment to reset Ghana for jobs, accountability, prosperity. The Speaker, as captured in the NDC manifesto, in this regard, the theme of our budget is resetting the economy for Ghana we want. Right Honorable Speaker, the democratic principles we tirelessly fought for are being held. Our democracy has been consolidated with yet another peaceful transition of power. That notwithstanding, our youth face an uncertain future with growing unemployment and hopelessness. This suggests that the dividend of democracy, such as economic prosperity and social justice, remains elusive. The Speaker, the choice before us as a country are clear. We can either continue on a path of self-destruction by not confronting the problems, or we can embark on a journey of fundamental reforms and transformation, one that resets our economic model, redefines our priorities, honors our social contract, and provide opportunity for all. The Speaker, luckily, President Mahama has chosen the path of reform and transformation. He will fix the economy. He will restore hope and lead us to build the Ghana we want together. Right Honorable Speaker, this budget was preceded by the National Economic Dialogue on the theme Resetting Ghana, Building the Economy We Want Together, on the 3rd and the 4th of March 2025. Through this consensus-building dialogue, the people demanded a decisive action, real solution to the severe challenges that plagued us as a country. Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget is a culmination of the true aspirations, felt needs, genuine desires of the people of Ghana, expressed through the engagement with diverse stakeholders. As part of our broad consultation also, ahead of the budget, we recently engaged traders at major trading centers, including the Mokola market. to listen to their concerns, gauge their expectations, and elicit their input. Mr. Speaker, the extensive consultation revealed that the overriding concern among Ghanaian traders and business community remains price and exchange rate stability. Apart from eroding their working capital, exchange rate volatilities makes effective business planning impossible and increase the cost of doing business. This budget outlines far-reaching measures which will be implemented in close collaboration with the Central Bank, the Bank of Ghana, to effectively and efficiently manage the exchange rate and inflation. Mr. Speaker, we also engage the youth of Ghana in a dialogue on social media as part of our new budget consultation. Mr. Speaker, during my engagement with the youth, it was revealed that 321 pharmacists who were employed since June 2023 have not received their salaries. We will take urgent steps to remedy this situation immediately. Right Honorable Speaker, this conversation was an eye-opening experience, one that strengthened my belief that the voices of the youth matter in designing policies that directly and indirectly impact their lives and future. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2016, I came to this chamber on behalf of the then Minister of Finance, the Honorable Seth Emmanuel Tepe, and led the passage of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 912, to deploy a robust public financial management system. Even though, Mr. Speaker, the Public Financial Management Act remains one of the best in the world, its poor implementation has rendered our public financial management systems weak, allowing for abuse and costly infraction. So, Speaker, President Mohammed's government is committed to the full implementation of this critical legislation. So, Speaker, accordingly, we will enforce the sanction regime, link contracting and public procurement to budgetary provisions in the medium-term expenditure framework, and seek parliamentary approval for all multi-year commitments as required by law. Mr. Speaker, we will comply with the public procurement process and link them to approved budget. We will also respect the limits of the appropriations as approved by Parliament. We will rationalize the management of the compensation of employees, including conducting headcounts across the country. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention or my focus to the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I now focus my attention on the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, hands on heart, we inherited an economy in deep crisis. Mr. Speaker, an economy hard hit with debt and beset by other fiscal challenges, such as large accumulation of MDRS, energy sector shortfalls, and financial sector payments. Mr. Speaker, recommitment control and reckless public spending have reversed the progress made in fiscal consolidation, even under the IMF program that commenced in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the gains made under the IMF-supported program that was to achieve through the painful sacrifice of domestic bondholders, external creditors, and taxpayers, the economy remains in distress. Right Honorable Speaker, key performance indicators to be assessed by the IMF staff in the upcoming fourth review of the program, scheduled for April 2025, such as the primary balance on commitment basis, inflation, social protection, and others, as at end 2024, are likely missed. Right Honorable Speaker, in addition, all structural benchmarks due by end December 2024 are also missed. So, Speaker, inflation worsened in the year 2024 from 23.2% in the year 2023 to 23.8% in 2024. Mr. Speaker, the 2024 end period inflation also exceeded the budget target of 15% by 8.8 percentage points and the IMF central target of 18% by 5.8 percentage points. Unfortunately, this has triggered a discussion with IMF under the monetary policy consultation clause. Right Honourable Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP in the year 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis target for 2024 was a surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, the previous government recorded a deficit of 3.9 percentage point of GDP. This presents a slippage of a whopping 4.4 percentage points. Right Honourable Speaker. At the end of December 2024, total central government arrests amounted to 67.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 5.2% of GDP. The Speaker, with the road sector recording an arrest of 21 billion Ghana cedis. The Speaker, when I assumed office on the 23rd of January 2025, my office was inundated with requests for payment from many contractors and suppliers. To ascertain the total arrests and outstanding payment for all MDAs, the Ministry of Finance decided to formally request all MDAs on the 28th of January 2028 to submit information on all arrests and outstanding claims for validation. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance held a special hearing with the MDAs to validate the arrests that were submitted for payment. The response from the MDAs and the validation revealed that a staggering amount of 67.5 billion Ghana cedis is owed to government contractors and suppliers. Mr. Speaker, this consists of MDA's outstanding interim payment of invoices worth 49.2 billion and bank transfer advice at the Controller Accountant General worth 18.3 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion excludes 1.73 billion US dollars owed to independent power producers. This 67 billion also excludes 68 billion Ghana cedis owned by Electricity Company of Ghana to contractors. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion US dollars also exclude the 32 billion owned by the Ghana Cocoa Board to contractors. And Mr. Speaker, this 67.5 billion also excludes the 5.75 billion owned by the Ghana Road Fund to various contractors. Right Honourable Speaker, the Bank of Ghana is also seeking an amount of 53 billion Ghana cedis as bailout to be able to address their negative equity challenge that they face. Mr. Speaker, as part of the measures to address these mounting accumulated arrests, we have commissioned an audit of these arrest payments and guarantee value for money before a penny will be paid. Mr. Speaker, before a penny will be paid, we'll commit to do that arrest. Right Honourable Speaker, in addition to the 67.5 billion cedis in arrests, the validation process also revealed that MDAs have awarded contract to the tune of a minimum 194 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount represents 16.5% of GDP as at the end of 2024, with the road sector again alone accounting for 100 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, most of these contractors and most of these contracts were awarded without commencement certificate and authorization. Mr. Speaker, this is in blatant violation of the Public Financial Management Act 921. Right Honourable Speaker, let me now update you on our debt service obligations. Mr. Speaker, apart from the huge arrests and commitment, our fiscal situation is further complicated by huge bullet debt service and constrained fiscal financing options. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the government option to finance the budget is limited to only Treasury bill market following the debt restructuring program. Moreover, the forthcoming debt service of both domestic and Eurobond debt obligation will have profound implications for fiscal sustainability and balance of payment. Right Honourable Speaker, Domestic debt service alone, programmed for the next 4 years, is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, simply put, the interest and principal payment that will be due for payment beginning now for the next 4 years is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. This represents 11.6% of GDP in domestic debt service obligation alone. The Speaker, of this 150 billion Ghana cedis, 73.3% of this 150 billion Ghana cedis is due for payment in the year 2027 and 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, 2027 alone, the domestic debt service that will be falling due will be 57.6 billion, and 2028 will be made to call upon to pay 52.5 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, the debt service obligation of 2027 and 2028 are major harms. These harms are cancerous and pose significant risks to the economy of Ghana. But, Mr. Speaker, touch wood, we shall fix it. We shall fix it. Mr. Speaker, our debt service obligation of this financial year is equally burdensome with significant harms. February, we were called upon to pay 9.9 billion. July, we'll be paying 6.2 billion, and August, we'll be paying 10.1 billion, all this year. Right, Honorable Speaker, the fiscal challenges are further compounded by the significant short-term treasury bill that we also inherited. So, Speaker, these obligations, totaling about 111.1 billion Ghana cedis, requires rollover week in, week out, placing additional pressure on cash flows and liquidity requirements. Mr. Speaker, beyond the domestic maturities, Ghana faces significant external debt service obligations for the next 4 years. The next 4 years will be made to call upon to pay $8.7 billion, representing 10.9% of GDP, with heavy concentration again in the year 2027 and 2028. Again, Mr. Speaker, 55% of this external debt service will be due in the year 2027 and 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, in the year 2027, we'll be made to pay $2.5 billion, and 2028, we'll have to again pay $2.4 billion. Right, Honorable Speaker, it seems the debt restructuring undertaken by the previous administration was designed to make 2027 and 2028 debt repayment heavy, sadly. So, Speaker, I don't know how come we sat and allowed that design to happen. So, Speaker, that is cancerous. But I can assure you, we will fix it. Mr. Speaker, in spite of all this upcoming domestic and external debt service obligation, no buffers were built to cushion this unprecedented debt service burden. Mr. Speaker, as of 7 January 2025, the debt service reserve account, the sinking fund in dollar, has a balance of $64,000. Mr. Speaker, when we were leaving office, we left behind $319 million in that same account. Mr. Speaker, the debt service reserve CD account had an amount of 143 million Ghana cedis. Right, Honorable Speaker, when we were leaving office, the balance was 430 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, I now move you to stalled project. Mr. Speaker, due to the bilateral creditors' debt restructuring that is ongoing, undertaken by previous administration, a staggering number of 55 projects have been halted. Mr. Speaker, this leaves a massive amount of $3 billion in undisbursed loans and about $300 million in outstanding interim payment certificates, IPCs. Some of these projects include the famous Ifia Kwanta Hospital, the Kejetia Market Phase 2, the Bolgatanga Boko Pomacrom Road, and the Tema Aflawa Road project. Delayed payment and demobilization from site could result in cost overruns of over $1.1 billion. Right, Honorable Speaker, the IMF-supported program imposed an annual disbursement ceiling of $250 million for all bilateral loans that are being restructured. This constraint means that it will take a minimum of 12 years to complete all of this stalled program. So, Speaker, unfortunately, as a result of the debt restructuring, all this stalled program, working with the IMF will take a minimum of 12 years if we decide to go business as usual. We'll be engaging in the coming days to resolve this challenge. Speaker, I now take you to the famous energy sector fiscal risk. Mr. Speaker, the increase in energy sector financing shortfall is posing significant risk to the Ghanaian economy. In the year 2024, the Ministry of Finance supported the energy sector with payment of about 20.8 billion Ghana cedis. These resources could have been used for job creation and other development programs, like roads, schools, and hospitals, if the sector inefficiencies were resolved. The Speaker, a recent exercise conducted by the Energy Sector Financing Modeling Team under the Energy Sector Recovery Program, ESRP, revealed that the business-as-usual energy sector financing shortfall has increased significantly to about 35 billion Ghana cedis for the year 2025 alone, even after spending in excess of 20 billion cedis in the year 2024. Right, Honorable Speaker, more importantly, the shortfall for the period 2023 to 2026 has been estimated to be about 140 billion Ghana cedis. The Speaker, this amount is 20 times more than the allocation for goods and service for all MDAs in the year 2025. The Speaker, in addition, the energy sector shortfalls, which relate to current invoices that are largely unpaid legacy arrests due to the independent power producers. So, Speaker, the legacy arrests stood at $1.73 billion as at end 2024. Right, Honorable Speaker, the cocoa sector, which has long been the backbone of the Ghanaian economy, is sadly on its knees, owing to gross mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, the sector faces declining output and financing challenges, characterized by unsustainable debt, rollover cocoa contract risk, and quasi-fiscal expenditures, including cocoa roads, which, Mr. Speaker, is a non-core function of the Ghana Cocoa Board. Right, Honorable Speaker, cocoa production has dropped by nearly 50% over the past 3 years. In the year 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was unable to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa to meet its contractual obligation. This sharply decline has affected the finances of Ghana Cocoa Board. This undersupply has been rolled over for subsequent years for the new administration to pay. So, Speaker, these 2023 to 2024 forward sales contracts, locked in at lower prices than the current market rates, have resulted in revenue losses of about $840 million for both Ghana Cocoa Board and the impoverished cocoa farmer. Right, Honorable Speaker, the rollout cocoa contract has resulted in a loss of $495 million for the year 2025 alone. So, Speaker, these are the risks in relation to the market price differentials and, as a result, costs causing the smuggling that we see with Ghana Cocoa Board. So, Speaker, Cocoa Board outstanding debt amount to 32 billion Ghana cedis, of which 11.92 billion is due to be paid in the year 2025. Outstanding cocoa road contracts reached 21 billion Ghana cedis, approximately $1.3 billion in the year 2024, of which only 4.4 billion has been accounted for in Cocoa Board's finances for the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, the financial sector still struggles, even after spending 30.3 billion in the financial sector cleanup exercise by end 2024. This includes 26.9 billion Ghana cedis after spending this amount in the banking sector, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the financial sector is still struggling, and the financial sector will require 10.45 billion Ghana cedis to address the financial sector legacy issues and emerging risk. In addition, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis is required to fully capitalize the National Investment Bank and the Agricultural Development Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I will also update the House on the fiscal performance for the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal performance in the year 2024 was characterized by improved revenue collection, but with significant expenditure overruns. In addition, large arrests were accumulated over the period. Mr. Speaker, in summary, the provisional data shows the following. 1. Primary balance on commitment basis, the key fiscal anchor of the IMF program, worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP at the end of 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% of GDP at the end of the year 2024. This is 4.4 percentage points worse than the target surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, on cash basis, Mr. Speaker, the primary balance was a deficit of 1.2% of GDP against a target of 0.6% of GDP, representing a 100% deviation. Mr. Speaker, the overall fiscal balance on commitment basis for 2024 was a deficit of 7.9% of GDP against a target of 4.2% of GDP, while the overall fiscal balance on cash basis was a deficit of 5.2% of GDP against a target of 5.3% of GDP. Total revenue and grant amounted to 186.6 billion Ghana cedis, or 15.9% of GDP, 5.3% above the revised target of 177.2 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.4% of GDP. The performance was mainly driven by higher than programmed oil and gas receipt and higher non-oil tax revenue collection. Total expenditure on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 279.2 billion, or 23.7% of GDP. This is 27.1% above the budget provisions of the year 2024, Mr. Speaker. The primary balance on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 232.4 billion, or 19.8% of GDP. This is 35.3% above the target of 171.7 billion, or 16.8% of GDP. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, all expenditure lines exceeded their respective target for the period, except for interest payments, goods and service, and other expenditures. Right Honorable Speaker, the discrepancies for the year 2024 being unclassified expenditure was 3.8 billion Ghana cedis as compared to 12.9 billion Ghana cedis in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, at the end of December 2024, provisional data indicate that gross central government and guaranteed debt was 726.7 billion from 610 billion in 2023. This represents 61.8% of GDP in 2024, compared to 68.7% in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP ratio and the dollar component of our debt that has come down, that has reduced, is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal of Eurobond debt under the debt restructuring. Mr. Speaker, it is important to know that. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP that has reduced is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal and interest that were given to Eurobond bondholders. So, Speaker, you may recall that the government commenced the debt restructuring program in the year 2022 to restore debt sustainability and economic stability. As of now, the restructuring process is approximately 93% completed. The remaining 7% relate to debt of $2.7 billion owed to commercial creditors. We are committed to completing the remaining debt restructuring as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, real sector development in the year 2024. Right Honorable Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistical Service on the 10th of March 2025 shows that overall real GDP growth increase. Mr. Speaker, at the end of increased to 5.7% in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, I take that again. Mr. Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistical Service on the 10th of March 2025 show that overall GDP growth grew by 5.7% of GDP in the year 2027, compared to the growth rate of 3.1% recorded over the same period. Mr. Speaker, the key driver of this growth was largely coming from gold mine, Mr. Speaker, including Galamsey. Including Galamsey. Mr. Speaker, Galamsey growth cannot be sustainable. Mr. Speaker, non-oil GDP growth. Mr. Speaker, the non-oil GDP grew by 0.6% in the year 2024, compared with the growth rate of 3.6% recorded in 2023. Mr. Speaker, the gross international reserves increased to a stock position of $8.98 billion at the end of 2024 and was enough to cover 4 months of imports, exceeding the target of a floor of 3 months of import cover. At the end of 2024, the currency had depreciated by 19.2% against the US dollars, 17.8% against the euro, against the British pound, Mr. Speaker, and it had depreciated by 13.7% against the euro. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, it is what it is. The state of our economy is troubling, but we will fix it. Mr. Speaker, touch wood, we will fix it. But Mr. Speaker, it will require some sacrifices, truthfulness, transparency, and discipline. We will take strong measures to confront the situation head on. Mr. Speaker, the sacrifice must come from all stakeholders, beginning with the government. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency the President appreciates this and has led the charge by significantly downsizing his government from the Elephant 88 to the Umbrella 60. Mr. Speaker, he has also reduced the number of his government ministries from the Elephant 30 to the Umbrella 23. Mr. Speaker, as part of the contribution to the resetting agenda, organized labor has followed suit by working with government and employers association to agree on a modest 10% increase in base pay and minimum wage for the year 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, on behalf of His Excellency the President, I would like to express my profound gratitude to organized labor and employers. Mr. Speaker, ordinary Ghanaians have also sacrificed by enduring the negative impact of severe currency depreciation since 2022. Hyperinflation, high food inflation, principal and interest haircuts, soaring interest rates, among others. Mr. Speaker, it is now time for the people's representative, the members of parliament, and the judiciary to also follow suit. I would like to call on all other stakeholders, including the business community, faith-based organizations, academia, and civil society to support this national call. So, Speaker, our immediate task is to reset our nation, to restore good governance, reduce the excruciating suffering of our people, and set our country on a trajectory of economic transformation. So, Speaker, our vision is to build a prosperous and a democratic state, anchored on the principles of freedom and justice, providing equal opportunities for all. So, Speaker, through this vision, we will work together to build the Ghana we want. Right, Honorable Speaker, the resetting agenda will be anchored on the following. 1, restoring hope in our democracy, renewing trust in public officials, and helping every Ghanaian attain their full potential. Offering a trusted hand to the vulnerable, particularly women and youth, and creating a new Ghana for coming generations. And finally, stimulating demand by patronizing made-in-Ghana goods under the 24-hour economy. Mr. Speaker, today I came to this chamber with made-in-Ghana bag, signifying, Mr. Speaker, with made-in-Ghana bag, Mr. Speaker, I would like to first present, Mr. Speaker, they don't know that in Ghana we sew suit. Right, Honorable Speaker, I would like to first present the government's immediate and strong measures to address the current challenges we are confronted with, followed by the medium-term vision, policy objectives, and targets. Right, Honorable Speaker, consistent with Section 14 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 911, the fiscal policy objectives of this government is to support the economic transformation agenda to ensure the macroeconomic stability of the country within the macroeconomic and fiscal framework. More specifically, the fiscal policy objectives of the government include the following: rationalizing government expenditure and eliminating wasteful expenditures, optimizing domestic revenue mobilization through broadening of tax base, increased non-tax revenue collection, adopting enhanced tax compliance measures, and modernizing the tax administration through digital technology. Mr. Speaker, we will also increase the share of domestic expenditure to spur economic growth and job creation. We'll be reducing public debt to sustainable levels and adopting prudent debt management practice to support debt sustainability. Reducing the fiscal deficit progressively in accordance with the amended Fiscal Responsibility Act to promote fiscal and debt sustainability. And Mr. Speaker, restoring confidence in the Ghana economy. Right, Honorable Speaker, our approach will be to foster economic growth, accelerate job creation, reduce inflation, and stabilize the cedi. To achieve this, it is crucial that we establish the macroeconomic stability and ensure debt sustainability. So, Speaker, we are confident that by prioritizing these fundamental elements, we can cultivate an environment where individuals can prosper and businesses can thrive in Ghana. So, Speaker, Ghanaians, through the recent National Economic Dialogue, have expressed a clear desire for fiscal deficit and public debt to be reduced through cuts in government spending rather than through only tax measures. We wholeheartedly agree. So, Speaker, going forward, we will tailor our expenditure to align with our fiscal realities. After all, whoever pays off their debt gets rich. So, Speaker, we are poised to implement a three-pronged approach to achieve our objective, beginning with this budget immediately. First will be to recalibrate the fiscal adjustment, and we believe that by spending by prioritizing spending-led fiscal adjustment, can initiate a positive cycle. Fiscal adjustment can initiate a positive cycle in a way that, first, it will help lower inflation and curb depreciation of the cedi. Secondly, it will lessen government reliance on borrowing, which in turn will reduce the crowding out of private sector and lower interest rates. Lastly, this approach will ease the strain on monetary policy, allowing the central bank some greater flexibility to reduce monetary policy rates, ultimately resulting in lower bank and lending rates. Mr. Speaker, the second approach will be to deliver a shock therapy. Mr. Speaker, we are implementing a form of shock therapy to the economy by making significant spending cuts this year, thereby reducing the government financing needs and front-loading fiscal adjustment. This is the down payment for our policy credibility and credit worthiness. Right Honourable Speaker, our third approach will be to restore fiscal responsibility. By moving forward, we will enhance public financial management by empowering ministers to effectively manage their budget on their own, ensuring strict compliance with the commencement certificate. Mr. Speaker, we'll be passing and enforcing a revised Fiscal Responsibility Act. And finally, we will enforce the sanction regime for non-compliance of the Public Financial Management Act. Mr. Speaker, in pursuit of the overarching macroeconomic objectives, the following macroeconomic targets have been set for the year 2025. Overall real GDP growth of at least 4% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, not less non-oil real GDP growth of at least 4.8% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, end period inflation rate of 11.9%. Mr. Speaker, primary balance on commitment basis of a surplus of 1.5% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, gross international reserves, including oil funds and encumbered assets, to cover not more than a minimum of 3 months of import. Mr. Speaker, to address inflation, government will implement a number of measures to complement the Bank of Ghana and monetary authorities. Mr. Speaker, the measures to stabilize the exchange rate include the following. We will be establishing the Ghana Gold Board to enhance the generation of accumulation of forex to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. The Bank of Ghana will continue to implement its FX forward auction to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. Government strong fiscal consolidation through the reduction in public sector spending and the fiscal deficit will reduce the pressure on the exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, our import substitution drive under the 24-hour economy involving domestic production of key products originally imported will reduce import and related FX requirements, boding well for FX stability. Right Honourable Speaker, we are addressing the inflation problems through a number of measures, including the following. First, specific interventions, including the Agriculture for Economic Transformational Agenda, is expected to increase food production and reduce food inflation. Government will implement policies that target items with large weight in the CPI basket, such as transportation and utility, to reduce their prices. Mr. Speaker, our aggressive fiscal consolidation drive aimed at reducing the fiscal deficit and borrowing will contribute significantly to reducing inflationary pressures. Right Honourable Speaker, our strategy to improve exchange rate stability will reduce imported inflation and fuel prices. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana will maintain an appropriate monetary policy stance and use its liquidity management interventions to support the disinflation process. Right Honourable Speaker, to achieve our expenditure-led fiscal consolidation objectives, we will implement the following measures. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to our expenditure measures. Mr. Speaker, the following expenditure measures will be implemented in 2025. and the medium term to support fiscal consolidation agenda. First, we will conduct a comprehensive audit to validate the quantum of arrests and commitment as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, the mandatory use of blanket purchase order to capture multi-year commitment contracts in line with our medium-term expenditure ceilings will be implemented. We amend the Public Procurement Act to provide for an independent value for money office to scrutinize government procurement. Mr. Speaker, we will also work with Parliament to amend the Public Procurement Act to make commencement certificate and budgetary provision a prerequisite for all procurement that will be paid by the central government. Mr. Speaker, we will fully integrate GANEPS and GIFMIS to ensure that only MDA's projects and purchase orders that have approved budget and allotment can obtain procurement approvals. Mr. Speaker, we will operationalize the compliance desks at the Ministry of Finance to monitor reports on commitment and arrest accumulation. Mr. Speaker, aside that, we will publish a PFM league table for compliance purposes. We will strictly enforce sanctions under the sections 96 to 98 of the Public Financial Management Act for breaches of the PFM Act, specifically those that relate to arrest accumulation and commitment control. Right, Honorable Speaker, we will cut waste, and we will cut it very deep. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, we have selected expenditure items including the Ghana Cares, the U-Start, One District, One Factory for complete elimination. Mr. Speaker, we will reassign the functions of development authorities such as Coastal Development Authority, the Northern Development Authority, the Middle Belt Development Authority to the district assemblies and do away with the development authorities. So, Speaker, we will amend the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to allocate all ABFA resources for infrastructure use, not for goods and services, but for infrastructure use. The Speaker, the National Health Insurance will receive full allocation under the earmark funds capping and realignment act. So, Speaker, the Road Fund will receive full allocation under the earmark fund and capping and realignment act. The Speaker, JNPC share of net carried and participating interest from 30, we will reduce the GNPC share of net carried and participating interest from 30% to 15% and fully restore transfers to GNPC under the earmark fund and capping alignment act. Right, Honorable Speaker, we'll be amending the Mineral Income and Investment Fund Act to ensure that 80% of the royalties originally maintained by MIF is transferred to the Consolidated Fund for Infrastructure Development. Right, Honorable Speaker, we will strengthen social protection through the implementation of new interventions such as the no academic fee policy for all first-year students in public tertiary institutions under the No Fee Stress Initiative. The Speaker, it also includes the free tertiary education for persons with disability, free primary health care, the Ghana Medical Trust Care, otherwise known as Mahama Care, and free sanitary pads for schoolgirls. Mr. Speaker, to address the energy sector challenges, including reducing the quantum of large energy sector shortfalls, the following energy sector recovery program interventions will be implemented this year. First, Mr. Speaker, ECG and NEDCO will implement a number of measures, including metering and implementation of private sector participation. Mr. Speaker, we'll also implement the liquid fuel to gas swap through an increase in N-gas supply from 60 MMSC per day to 100 MMSC to take advantage of cheaper gas prices and others. Mr. Speaker, we will complete the IPP capacity renegotiation to generate some savings through negotiated lower fixed capacity charges and variable O&M charges. Mr. Speaker, as agreed with the IMF, by the previous administration. We will implement the following ESRP measures to achieve the structural benchmark of the IMF program. Mr. Speaker, PURC will continue to implement the quarterly tariff adjustment to reflect changes in inflation, exchange rate, and generation mix. Mr. Speaker, PURC will also undertake a major tariff adjustment which will be due in fourth quarter of 2025 to reflect capacity charges, additional liquid fuel usage, and additional capex. The weighted average cost of gas will be increased from the current $7.80 per MMBTU to $8.45 to reflect the increased prices of natural gas as well as the changes in the supply mix. Mr. Speaker, the subsidy on weighted average cost of gas granted to some ceramic companies through the discounted industrial development tariff will be reversed. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the revenue measures. Mr. Speaker, in proposing some revenue measures to achieve the 2025 fiscal target for your consideration, I'll first take you to the IMF requirement. Mr. Speaker, this measure is inconsistent with our commitment under the IMF-supported program to observe a non-oil tax revenue effort of 0.6% point of GDP annually as part of the measures to improve domestic revenue mobilization and achieve our debt sustainability target over the medium term. Right Honorable Speaker, despite our commitment to increase the non-oil tax revenue by 0.6%, we have programmed the following nuisance taxes for removal in line with our manifesto promise. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on betting. We will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. We will abolish the emission levy, otherwise as in Wusie tax. We will abolish the VAT on motor vehicle insurance policy. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 1.5% withholding tax on unprocessed gold by small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable income. Right Honorable Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable incomes. In addition, it will support business growth and improve tax compliance. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, the tax refund account has been abused in recent years. In the last 8 years, a study revealed that 29.1 billion Ghana cedis had accrued to the tax refund account, with only 12.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 43% of the total accrued amount, being used for tax refund purposes. Mr. Speaker, the study also revealed that 16.6 billion Ghana cedis, representing 57% of the total amount accumulated in the tax refund account, was misapplied. Mr. Speaker, which is a total violation of the Revenue Administration Act, Act 915, and the Public Financial Management Act. Instructively, Mr. Speaker, there were virtually no tax refund arrests over the period. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, we are reducing the current tax refund ceiling by 2 percentage points from 6% to 4% of total revenue, as defined in Section 69 of the Revenue Administration Act 915. Mr. Speaker, by reducing the ceiling on the tax refund from 6% to 4%, Right Honorable Speaker, we have saved the taxpayer 3.8 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount is enough to close the revenue shortfalls from the removal of the down account from 6 to 4. It is enough to remove this tax, and the savings will be provided to take care of social interventions. Mr. Speaker, already we have saved 3.8 billion cedis for 2025 alone from one source, and this is enough to close the gap from the taxes. Mr. Speaker, to address the concerns from well-meaning Ghanaians on how we are going to close the revenue shortfalls as a result of the removal of the selected taxes, the answer is that we have stopped the bleeding. We have stopped the bleeding. Mr. Speaker, accordingly, with this budget, we will amend the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915. This measure will improve the tax revenue net of tax refund by 2%, representing 0.3% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, in line with government policy, the 2025 minimum wage recently negotiated with the National Tripartite Committee will be zero rated. This is consistent with our resolve to protect the poor and the vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, again, without increasing the levy, we will also review the Energy Sector Levies Act to consolidate the energy debt recovery, the Energy Sector Recovery Levy, and the Sanitation and Pollution Levy into one levy and use the proceeds to cater for energy sector shortfalls and service the inherited debt service obligation. Mr. Speaker, the reset has just begun. Right Honorable Speaker, the rest of the energy sector levies, including the Road Fund Levy, Energy Fund Levy, Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy, Public Lighting Levy, and National Electrification Levy will remain to support the achievement of their intended objectives. Right Honorable Speaker, Ghana has not sufficiently capitalized on the benefits of its extractive sector to generate revenue to support development and diversification. We have failed to leverage our natural wealth by capturing its rent and channeling it towards productive infrastructure and human capital. Natural resource rent, which is the difference between the revenue of a commodity and the average cost of producing that commodity, is about 14% of GDP in the case of Ghana. However, Mr. Speaker, revenue from extractive industry is around 1.5% of GDP only. This is because, as a country, we have failed to fully capture the economic rent of our natural resources. Mr. Speaker, whereas global gold prices have seen some significant increase in recent times, Ghana has not been able to take full advantage of the development. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, we are proposing to increase the Growth and Sustainability Levy from 1% on gross production of mining companies to 3% to enable the nation to have its fair share of the windfall. Mr. Speaker, we also propose to extend the sunset clause to 2028. Mr. Speaker, we also propose to extend the sunset clause of the special import levy to 2028. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians and this Honorable House will recall that road tolls on public roads were zero rated in the year 2022. Demand for construction and improvement of roads infrastructure continues to increase, even as substantial arrests and claims in the road sector remains. Right Honorable Speaker, While the annual average collection from road tolls have not been significant compared to its potential, the existing zero-rated policy for road tolls has increased the situation and dimmed the prospect of raising enough revenue from tolls to road construction and maintenance. Accordingly, government will work with the stakeholders, including the private sector, to roll out a technology-driven solution to reintroduce road tolls this year as part of the big push. Right, Honorable Speaker, we will also strengthen the legal and regulatory regime for non-tax revenue and enforce the framework to improve service delivery. This will be achieved through the introduction of an overarching non-tax revenue legislation, amendment of existing relevant laws, and the development of a national non-tax revenue strategy and policy. Mr. Speaker, as part of the reforms to improve other non-tax revenue streams, government will explore the operationalization of a regulatory framework for collection, management, and reporting of property rates consistent with our medium-term revenue strategy 2024 to 2027 and the Local Government Act. Mr. Speaker, we believe that the local authorities must be given the opportunity to collect their own property rates. Mr. Speaker, the current compliance rate for SMEs and personal income tax is below 30%, which is extremely low. Government will embark on an aggressive and sustained tax education campaign in the next 2 to 3 years to ensure improved compliance and tax revenue mobilization. We will also institute a quarterly dialogue on tax issues among the Ghana Revenue Authority, Ministry of Finance, and the business community to ensure that issues affecting businesses are addressed promptly. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to VAT reforms. Right, Honorable Speaker, we commit to the people of Ghana and this House, the business community, that we will undertake a comprehensive value-added tax reform this year. Mr. Speaker, with the aim to review the current distortions and cascading structure of the value-added tax regime. Ghana's effective rate, VAT rate is about 22%. This is obviously because the 2.5% Get Fund levy, the National Health Insurance levy of 2.5%, and the COVID levy are well added to the base for a final determination of what is due for VAT purposes. Mr. Speaker, aside the high VAT rate, businesses are not permitted by law to claim their input VAT for NHIL, Get Fund, and COVID levy, compounding the burden on households. Right, Honorable Speaker, our VAT regime has been distorted and rendered inefficient. It combines both VAT and sales tax principles with a flat rate, standard rate, and levies. We have requested for technical assistance from the Fiscal Affairs Department of the IMF on VAT reforms. It is expected that the IMF mission will commence in April 2025. The recommendations from the Technical Assistance Mission are expected to inform our reform. Mr. Speaker, ahead of the IMF Technical Assistance Mission, I will inaugurate a VAT reform task force to hold broad consultation with key stakeholders for their input. Mr. Speaker, the parameters for VAT reform will be is for them to complete this year. Mr. Speaker, the parameters will include the following. 1, abolishing the COVID levy. Mr. Speaker, reversing the decoupling of Get Fund and NHIL VAT from VAT. Mr. Speaker, reducing the effective VAT rate for households and businesses. Reversing the VAT flat rate regime and upwardly adjusting the VAT registration threshold to exempt micro and small businesses from the collection of VAT. Mr. Speaker, will also improve compliance through public education and awareness. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to revenue mobilization and resource allocation. Mr. Speaker, total revenue and grant for 2025 is projected at 223.8 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.2% of GDP. up from 186.5 billion, or 17.4% of GDP. The projection is underpinned by non-oil revenue measures, which are expected to yield at least 0.6% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, total expenditure on commitment basis for 2025 has been programmed at 269.1 billion, representing 20.7% of GDP, down from 279.2 billion, which is 26% of GDP in the year 2024. Primary expenditure on commitment basis is projected at 204.7 billion Ghana cedis, representing 15.8% of GDP, which is a significant decline from 232.4 billion, representing 21.7% of GDP in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, based on the resource allocation from 2025 fiscal year, the total appropriations for the year ending 31st December 2025 is 290,971,212,435 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, budget financing. Right Honorable Speaker, based on the estimate for total revenue and grant and total expenditure, the projected overall balance on commitment basis is a deficit of 43.8 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 3.1% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on commitment basis is a surplus of 20.3 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 1.5% of GDP. On cash basis, Mr. Speaker, overall balance is a deficit of 56.9 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 4.1% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on cash basis is again a surplus of 7.3 billion, equivalent to 0.5% of GDP. Right Honorable Speaker, the cash deficit of 56.9 billion is expected to be financed from both foreign and domestic sources. The total foreign net financing will amount to 21.4 billion Ghana cedis. Foreign financing will include a provision for financing from IMF ECF program disbursed of 720 billion Ghana cedis and the World Bank Development Policy operations of 600 million Ghana cedis. The residual net domestic financing will amount to 36.9 billion, representing 65% of total financing for 2025. This is expected to be sourced from the issuance of debt at the short end of the domestic market and opening of the domestic market. Mr. Speaker, the government will take steps to reopen the domestic bond market to extend the maturity profile. The reopening will be executed cautiously to establish large-size benchmark bonds that will enhance market liquidity. Right Honorable Speaker, further is to reduce the risk on debt portfolio of government, and we will build cash buffers to support effective implementation of the liability management strategy. Mr. Speaker, this will help smoothing the redemption profile and mitigate refinancing risk associated with Ghana's debt portfolio. Mr. Speaker, the government in 2025 and the medium term will implement liability management operations to manage the risk embedded in the Eurobond debt profile. Right Honorable Speaker, beginning 2025, we will commence the operationalization of Section 37 to Section 44 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, we will be building sufficient buffers in the sinking fund as a landmark reform to manage our public debt. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm pleased to report to the House that following our proactive fiscal management strategy, in our engagement with the market, this management strategy has yielded sufficient dividend. Mr. Speaker, on the 7th of January 2025, the NDC government inherited a 91-day Treasury bill rate of 28.19%. Mr. Speaker, just 2 months into this administration, we have successfully reduced this rate to 17.72% as at last Friday. Mr. Speaker, this represents a reduction of over 10%. In other words, 1,047 basis points in just 2 months. Mr. Speaker, similarly, on the 7th January 2024, we inherited a 182-day Treasury bill rate at 28.92%. We have again successfully reduced that rate to 18.97% as at Friday, 7th March 2025. This represents a reduction of 995 basis points in only 2 months. The Speaker, again, on the 7th of January 2025, we inherited a 364-day Treasury bill rate of 30.15%. We have successfully reduced this rate to 19.93% as at Friday, 7th March 2025. Mr. Speaker, this represents a reduction of 1,022 basis points in just 2 months. Mr. Speaker, on average, rates have fallen by over 1,000 basis points, signifying a strong investor confidence, crowding in the private sector, reducing the cost of doing business, and overall acceptance of economic policies of President John Dramani Mahama, ultimately laying the groundwork for sustained macroeconomic stability. It has been done already. So, Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, the key policy intervention to support economic transformation and job creation agenda include the following. So, Speaker, the 24-hour economy aimed at stimulating economic growth by creating an enabling environment for businesses and institutions to operate 24/7 in 3 shifts of 8 hours each to boost production, promote productivity, and generate well-paying jobs. We will be presenting the policy to Parliament in due course for consideration. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Act, the GIPC Act, and other enabling legislations will be reviewed to support the 24-hour economy policy. Right Honorable Speaker, we'll roll out the implementation of the $10 billion Big Push policy for strategic infrastructure development to open up the country and drive sustainable economic growth. Right Honorable Speaker, the Ghana Gold Board will be established in the course of the year and as soon as possible. So, Speaker, we will stabilize the Ghana cedi and provide stability to the macroeconomy. We will implement an economic transformational agenda underpinned by structural reforms anchored on promoting modernized agriculture, agribusiness, and value addition for import substitution, export, and job creation. Mr. Speaker, we will complement monetary policy with fiscal and real sector policies to reduce inflation. Food inflation will be reduced through the implementation of the Agriculture for Economic Transformation agenda anchored on our 24-hour economy. Right Honorable Speaker, we will undertake key structural reforms to support inclusive economic growth, fiscal and debt sustainability, sound public financial management, efficient public service delivery, and good governance. The Speaker will restructure the Bank of Ghana to strengthen its independence and operationalize its efficiency mandate. So, Speaker, we will ensure that social protection is adequately catered for in the course of the year. We will use government procurement to drive Made in Ghana agenda to promote production and consumption of Made in Ghana goods. Right Honorable Speaker, to demonstrate this agenda, as I said, I came to this House with a presentation of a bag proudly made in Ghana by Horseman. Mr. Speaker, this should be encouraged. Right Honorable Speaker, beginning this year, we will formalize the export of Ghanaian labor to other countries. We will ensure a structured and beneficial system for Ghanaian workers seeking employment abroad and create safer legal pathway for them to work in foreign countries whilst protecting their rights and welfare. Mr. Speaker, this will also reduce illegal immigration, prevent worker exploitation, and maximize the economic benefits of remittance and boost foreign exchange earnings. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to how these resources will be allocated in the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, we will provide a cedi equivalent of $279 million as a revolving fund for the Ghana Gold Board to be able to purchase and export at least 3 tons of gold per week from small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis for Big Push project. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis for the Big Push program. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 499.8 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for the non-academic fee policy for all first-year students in public tertiary institutions under the No Fee Stress initiatives. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated an amount of 292.4 million Ghana cedis to commence the distribution of free sanitary pads to female students in primary and secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated again an amount of 242.5 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of Akosombo Dam spillage. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 200 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of tidal wave disaster that recently displaced resident in certain part of K2 South constituency. Mr. Speaker, the overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of dedicated sources of financing. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has resolved it. Mr. Speaker, let me take this again. The overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of a dedicated sources of funding. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has resolved the funding challenges by uncapping the GET fund. Mr. Speaker, this makes available dedicated funding for full financing of free senior secondary school education and free tertiary education for persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, therefore, Capping and Realignment Act will be amended to uncap the Ghana Education Trust Fund. Mr. Speaker, this year, the budget for free senior secondary school education program is 3.5 billion Ghana cedis. By uncapping the GET fund, we will be making available an additional 4.1 billion Ghana cedis, specifically for financing free secondary education program and other related expenditures. Aside the uncapping of GET fund, we have also absorbed the debt service made up of interest and principal from the Dache bond that GET fund contracted. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 564.6 million Ghana cedis for the provision of curriculum-based textbooks covering the following. 1, 4 sets of KG books and workbooks for about 2.8 million learners. Mr. Speaker, we have also provided for 4 sets of primary textbooks for about 800,000 learners. Mr. Speaker, we have also provided for 9 sets of SHS textbooks for about 540,000 learners. Right, Honorable Speaker, under the school feeding program, budgetary provision has been increased from the 1.3 billion Ghana cedis last year to 1.78 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, representing a 33% increase. The allocation for 2025 reflects an increase in feeding costs per meal, per child, from the 1 cedi 50 pesos to 2 cedis, representing 33.3%. Mr. Speaker, government has also allocated 145.5 million Ghana cedis to the capitation grant, up from 84 million Ghana cedis in 2024. This is an increase of 73.4% over the previous year. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated 203 million Ghana cedis for the payment of teacher training allowances and another 480 million Ghana cedis to nursing training allowances. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we have uncapped the National Health Insurance Levy. Mr. Speaker, we have uncapped the National Health Insurance Levy. An amount of about 10 billion Ghana cedis has been programmed for the National Health Insurance Scheme. And this amount is expected to be used for the following: claim payments, essential medicine, vaccine payment, free primary health care, the Ghana Medical Care Trust, Mr. Speaker, and bridging the USAID financing shortfall. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2025, government will continue to implement reforms and increase budgetary allocation to enhance the implementation of 4 targeted social protection programs, namely National Health Insurance, the LEAP program, the school feeding program, and the capitation grant. Right Honorable Speaker, under the LEAP program, beneficiaries will be increased from the current 350,000 to 400,000 beginning July 2025. The allocation of 728.8 million Ghana cedis for last year has been increased to 953.5 million Ghana cedis in the year 2025. So, Speaker, we have also uncapped the road fund. An amount of 2.81 billion Ghana cedis has been programmed for the Ghana Road Fund to be used solely for road maintenance. This represents an increase of 155% over the 2024 allocation of 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 7.5 billion Ghana cedis to the District Assembly Common Fund. In accordance with our decentralization policy, we propose to Parliament that a minimum of 80% of the funds allocated to the District Assembly Common Fund should be sent directly to the district assemblies to spur economic growth and at the district level to deepen decentralization. Right Honorable Speaker, I repeat, we have allocated an amount of 7.5 billion Ghana cedis to the district assemblies common fund. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with our decentralization policy and objective, we propose to Parliament that a minimum of 80% of the funds should be sent directly to the district assemblies to spur economic growth at the district level and deepen decentralization. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that in a stark contrast to what has happened recently at the District Assembly Common Fund, where only 50% of the released amount are sent to the District Assembly for the purposes of running the assemblies. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 1.5 billion Ghana cedis for Agriculture for Economic Transformational Program, of which Feed Ghana, Ghana Grains Development Project, Vegetable Development Project, and Nkoko Nketenkete are all key components of the program. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated 51.3 million Ghana cedis as seed fund for the establishment of the Women's Development Bank. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated 300 million Ghana cedis to the National Apprenticeship Program. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, we have also allocated an amount of 300 million Ghana cedis to the National Apprenticeship Program. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 100 million Ghana cedis to the Edumewura Program. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated to the National Codes Program. Mr. Speaker, another amount of 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for the payment of monthly allowance to all Assembly members. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as, Mr. Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as sector-specific policy interventions to deal with the challenges of various MDAs. So, Speaker, I want to repeat this. So, Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as specific sector interventions to deal with the challenges of various MDAs. This is indeed a departure from the norm, where ministers of finance present detailed sectorial performance as part of their budget speech. So, Speaker, I believe sector ministers must be made to do so. Right Honorable Speaker, in conclusion. So, Speaker, in conclusion. Mr. Speaker, the state of the economy, as I have presented, does not reflect an economy that has turned the corner. It reflects an economy in severe distress, burdened with debt repayment harms, mismanagement, and lack of accountability. The budget sets Ghana on a path of fiscal responsibility, debt sustainability, macroeconomic stability, and job creation. It is about resetting the economy and restoring hope. Ghanaians reaffirmed their faith in a better future when they actively participated in the National Economic Dialogue on the 3rd and 4th of March 2025. A key outcome of the dialogue was the confirmation that the fundamental problem with our economy is fiscal indiscipline. The NPP administration awarded contracts outside the expenditure framework. They borrowed over and above Ghana's capacity to repay. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahamad's administration will be fiscally disciplined. and deliver improved public service to our people in a cost-effective manner. Mr. Speaker, we remain steadfast in meeting the IMF program target while restoring Ghana's creditworthiness. We have achieved a lot in a short time, but this is only the beginning. Our commitment to reform we will not waver on that, Mr. Speaker. We have achieved a lot in this short time, and our commitment to reform will not waver. Those who doubt our resolve should not underestimate the determination of the people of Ghana, who will no longer tolerate ineffective governance. Together, we will navigate these turbulent times and emerge stronger. Mr. Speaker, we are making serious progress. Right, Honorable Speaker, we are making progress. We committed to running a lean, efficient government of 60 ministers. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to scrapping the e-levy. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to scrapping the burden tax. We have delivered. Right, Honorable Speaker, we committed to eliminate academic fee for first-year public tertiary students. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to providing free tertiary education for all people with disability. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to providing dedicated source of funding for free secondary education. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to distributing sanitary pads to our schoolgirls. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to uncap get. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to uncap the national health insurance. We have delivered. Right, Honorable Speaker, we committed to uncap the road fund to maintain our roads. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to hold a national forum on education. We have delivered. Right, Honorable Speaker, we committed to hold a national dialogue on the economy. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver free primary health care. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver Mahama Care Program to finance the treatment of non-communicable disease. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver free textbooks to school children. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed